Yeah.
I haven't flown in so long, I'm afraid. One of these times I'm gonna have to do it though.
Yeah.
My brother lives in Australia and he's like 4 years older than me, so we're both getting old. I miss him. He used to come a lot because his wife's mother lived in Laguna Beach. So they would come to visit her and then they'd come up to see me and he'd go up north and see his high school buddies. She died last year, so they don't really have an urgent reason to come. And so but if he doesn't come pretty soon, I'm just gonna have to go to Australia.
That's all.
I've gone a couple times, but it's a long.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
I think it's probably safe enough now.
How many hours is the third flight?
Oh,
What,
man.
17? or-
Yeah, I think it's like 17.
Now it's 13. Well, where are you going in Australia?
Brisbane.
Okay, that's probably a little
It's
longer.
close. It's one of the
To
closest.
go to Sydney, it's 13.
Oh, direct.
Yeah.
I love to go there.
And then you
New
get
Zealand.
on another flight to go to Brisbane.
Yeah.
I went once to India and spent a bunch of time. And then I flew back to Australia to visit my brother. And I thought, oh, it's down in the southern hemisphere. But the flight from India to Australia was one of the longest flights I ever
Really?
recall. Yeah, I mean, it's not any longer than from here to Australia, but it just seemed like forever.
Going against the wind or something.
Yeah, against sanity.
You don't just like take a sleeping pill and just take a nap?
For-
long nap?
No, but I'm a little scared of flying.
Okay.
I mean, when I think about it, but then I go ahead and do it all the time. But sometimes for a while I was taking Valium, just pop the Valium, and that works really great. You know, you're no longer scared. Some people drink, they have all the bars at the
Oh, yeah.
airport. Some people drink. Drinking wears off, Valium's actually better.
Are you recorded?
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I prefer Valium.
We can just edit
Some-
that out.
That can be
Sometimes-
taken out of context.
Yeah, sometimes opiates are okay. but-
Who said we weren't gonna learn anything?
Well, you want people who end up looking at these up for some reason to at least get a kick out of it.
There
It's so
you go.
boring
Some
to go do
entertainment.
that. They go, look, hey, Joe, come look at what this guy's talking about to this class.
Could be a new
Is that guy
movie. still
still on our payroll? Yeah. That old fart retired a long time ago. I don't, you get to an age and you just don't care. I don't care. There are so many billions of things more important in the world right now. Yeah. So I think we're good enough now to start.
Yeah.
You recording or have you been recording?
We've been.
Other than that,
We have to still do the text, right?
Yeah, sometimes, like on Zoom especially, some of the guys would stay late after class and we'd talk for like an hour. We forget to shut up. A lot of that's on Zoom. And some of the stuff we talked about wasn't that kosher for our school. Again, somebody someday will enjoy it if they don't just flush it all down the toilet.
You can probably edit it, I would imagine. Cut parts out.
I never figured out how to do it. I kind of tried for a little bit and I got frustrated, so I gave up.
It's really easy.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, you show me then.
If you have a video editing program, it's really easy.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So how many cameras you gonna edit?
So let's just jump right into the test prep. I've got a couple of short YouTubes, they're pretty short, about duct blasting and about telling how many CFMs your fans, it's a little device that goes on like a vacuum fan, and it'll tell you how much it's blowing. And you have to know that for a couple of reasons. If you want to use your bathroom as a whole house fan, you don't even need to test it. You can just take it out to begin with, but that's one way to do it. And you'll realize it's A, too loud, and B, too not strong enough. But, or sometimes you want to confirm, they don't worry about old houses, whatever you got's fine with the government. But if a new house, it has to meet certain regulations, and then you might have to test it, have it tested. Fans have really come up to their own in the last 20 years. They're pretty good now. Okay, so get your notepads out. So the test is Monday, week from tonight. And So everybody try to make it. It's not the end of the world if you don't. If your family member has an accident, go do that. You know, we can always do the test on Zoom or whatever, but you know, it's to your benefit if you come because you'll have me to ask questions too. And then but before that Saturday, we're gonna go to Home Depot, Stork Ranch, all in that kind of Home Depot area. We're gonna look at a couple of solar displays of the university. And if we have time, I want to take you to my favorite lookout place. Overlooks the airport. Show you some stuff, some historical stuff. I kind of take a bio-regional approach to all this, and that is, you know, wherever you are, there's a lot of stuff to know about, not just what you're studying. All right? Okay, so, before we start, let me ask one thing. I asked guys on Saturday, I think it was. No, yes. But there were less of you here. So we're trying to get numbers for summer to offer classes. So in fall, we're going to offer, which karate class is it?
Oh, 115.
115. And then we're going to offer 112. I've been saying 113, but actually the chart I was using to figure out when the last time we did something was wrong, because we didn't do 112 when the chart showed it. We did something else instead because we were catering to what people needed. So we'll do 112 in fall and then 110. We always start out with 110. So those three. So summer, I'm willing to teach both to get him out of the way because we're getting a new chair in fall and we don't know, he's got to teach a lot of class himself and, you know, and we're kind of back, we're a little bit behind. So I thought maybe I'd teach a couple if necessary. One, I'm committed to the blueprint reading, CT 116. How many in here need that or want to take it in some, could take it in summer?
I could take that in summer.
Okay, so we got a handful. So we'll probably need 15. I'll find out for sure if there's any break on it.
What class is that again? Blueprint.
Blueprint reading,
Oh.
113. I mean, it's part of the certificate requirement if you're going for that, but if you're not, it's actually a good class for anybody going into the building trades.
Is it actually 113 or?
No, it's 116.
116.
So yeah, so if you're going to the building trades, it's also good because you're going to have
the other
to.
one you were gonna teach for summer?
Well, I was thinking
Summer
summer
two?
1, but one student asked if I could do it summer 2. So I'll probably, and I'm willing to do either way. So it depends on what people want. The people that are taking it, is summer 2 okay to do that? Okay, so let's do summer 2. That's what you wanted, right?
Measuring and calculating? Oh, no, that was me. For
No.
blueprint reading.
No, you wanted.
Yeah, but it doesn't really matter
Okay,
anymore.
so let's do summer 2 for
Yeah,
that,
you
okay?
can do either.
And then the other one, I thought I could do summer 1 would be measuring and calculating because one student needs it. So I want to see if anybody else, a lot of you just took it that last time. So we're kind of between groups of students. Does anybody, have you all taken measuring and calculating?
No.
Do you need it? Are you going for the certificate? And you need it? You've taken it. You've taken it?
Yeah.
How about on the Alex, are you interested in it?
I have taken it.
Who is that? Mike?
Jacob.
Oh, Jacob. Is Mike on there?
Yeah.
Oh, Mike's taking all that.
Yeah.
Somebody else. What's his name?
Zach.
Dad,
Hi there.
is he on there?
Yeah, he's on it.
Exactly.
Is he taking the measuring calculator?
Yeah, last semester.
Oh, he did it last
You
semester.
do it with Rodney.
Yeah, see, I
What's
used to
the
know
number?
if people did it because I was the only one who ever taught it for 12 years, but
What's the key number? Is that measuring?
that's 118. Well, we'll try. We'll do that summer 1 and the blueprint reading summer 2. And everybody sign up if they need it and we'll hustle. I'll try to get it on the books right away so people can see it and we can start slowly building. And then toward the end of the class, if it's still low, we'll have everybody try to ask their friends or hustle up for it. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
If they don't fly, I mean, we're gonna give it their best. If they don't fly, we'll just do it during the regular semester. it's just, it'll all get done. It's just that there's big change here because we're getting a full-time who teaches a majority of the classes. And we don't know how much the school's gonna let us teach. During the pandemic, they made us keep the number of classes lower than we needed. That's why we always were behind. So I'm gonna push for that too, that we can come back to our regular sequence, but all that kind of remains to be seen, so. All right, well, that's good, okay. So I'll talk to Mike about that, setting those up. Or I guess we gotta get the dean's permission too. But I think yeah, okay,
Are those gonna be in, on campus or?
they'll be on campus.
Okay.
The math one I could do at home, but it's more fun to do.
Yeah.
It's a good math class, I think. I've got people who've taken it from me in here. Don't say anything bad.
Yeah, it was fun.
But I'm a really patient teacher.
With Rodney, you spend half the class listening to him talk about somebody's on.
Dylan really liked it, you know.
Yeah. So I teach it, and it's really, if math has been a problem in your past, which it has for a lot of us, don't worry about it.
Start the basics.
Because I'm real patient. I know it really well. And you know, I can baby you along and it'll be good. So. Okay. Was that a question? Was that answering a question?
No.
All right. Oh, I wanted to say that because math, I always forget to add that because math's a touchy subject for people. And even though it's required for the content, if it's a touchy subject, you'll tend to keep putting it off. And I'm saying, don't put things off if you have the time and the money to take the class. Okay. Right. Well, I didn't know Rodney's, I didn't attend Rodney's class, but has anybody taken a blueprint reading from Rodney? He taught it once.
Yeah, I did.
Michael says he did
On Zoom.
on Zoom, Michael Silva.
Oh, Michael, oh yeah, Michael probably, yeah.
Sacramento.
How do you like it?
Yeah, no, it was good with him. It was I think I took it 2 semesters ago. I can't remember. But no, it was good. It was interesting to me, especially with like going over CAD stuff and whatnot.
Mike's such a nice guy. He would never say that. Whereas you get, you know, these blokes back here. All right.
Oh, Rodney's awesome.
Yeah, he's a great.
Boy, he's a great guy. And you know, even if you don't learn what you go there to learn, you'll learn a lot anyway. So,
A lot about life.
you know, I mean, that's kind of the way life is.
Thinking about it now, Louis, you never gave us pizza.
Not in that.
But the math's really important for building. And they have math calculators now that you can depend on, but you kind of need to know some things. So it's a good class.
Do you do it like he does it where the first exam is all by hand and then the second exam you use calculator?
No,
No.
I do it different each time, but I mean, some things are easier by hand, and I like to tell people that, like stair framing is actually easier by hand for some reason. But the whole thing with math, and this is the last thing I'm going to say, because you guys are going to track me, I know. Like it doesn't take a lot, I know, but yeah, but you have to know your times tables to do any hand math, division or multiplication, even the simplest stuff. And a lot of people don't know those.
Right.
So I go through it and I tell people, give them practice things that they want to try to relearn it. Sometimes it's hard to learn math stuff when you're already grown up, but it's worth a try. And if you don't think you're ever going to learn your tables, then a calculator will do it. But it's nice to do it. But again, you know, I don't know why stair framing is so easy, because it's just the way you figure out things at the beginning. The process works really good by hand. Because I know, because you want it's easier to work with the common fractions. If you use the calculator, it's got to go to decimals. So then you're converting back and forth, which is already more than you need to do. So
Will that class be fully in person or?
that'll be fully in person. Yeah, it'll be summer. As far as I think, it'll be summer 1 and then blueprint reading summer 2. But it's got to be cleared by the dean, so we'll see what he says. But that's what I'd like to do. I need to hear from you, and now I can go to the dean.
Home Depot sells the construction master 5 over by the clamps at Home Depot.
It's like $30, right?
Yeah, it's not too
Those have
bad.
come down. They used to be like
Like
60,
30.
70 bucks. They're just a lifesaver. They're really excellent. You can't do everything. They say you can do everything. You can't. I'll tell you what you can't do during the class. But
Don't see
but
it on your phone.
the greatest thing is that it converts decimals to what I call carpenter's fractions, the ones that are on your tape measure, 16ths and 8ths and quarters. It converts decimals to those just by a flip. So if you have this gnarly fraction, you just flip it and it's got it. You could go out and measure it. That in itself is worth the $30 right there. But it's, it does other things too. Anyway, yeah, I don't like a lot of new products, but can't complain about that one.
Don't worry, Rodney didn't like me and Lewis using our calculators.
For the first season.
Well, like I
For the
say,
first time.
if you don't have the times tables memorized, you can't do long division and multiplication. I mean, why torture someone,
That tripped a lot of people up on the first season.
I know, and the way math is taught in this country is not very good, I have to tell you.
They keep changing it.
They keep changing it, and the
fair.
teachers, they seem to get all the what's the word? The sadist,
Not caring.
yeah, not caring and evil teachers. I swear, it's so weird.
Well, in high school, they focus on testing instead of
Yeah.
teaching.
Of course.
They-
And that lends itself to testing. I mean, if anything does.
I mean, I had a friend taking an honors class or AP class.
Yeah.
The only thing, the teacher didn't even teach them anything about what they're learning, just prepared them for the test.
Yeah. I know.
All he did.
Well, there's all that too about needing test scores to be high for your school,
Yeah.
which corrupts everything. Anyway, let's not get into public education. We've all been through it. We all have our sensitivities toward it. Okay, ready?
Let's go.
So native plants, what's the value of using native plants?
They're easy to grow in the area.
Okay, so,
Usually, yeah.
yeah, I mean,
It's the climate.
yeah, those are both true. They're used to the climate. They've evolved here for, oh, God knows how many years, possibly up to 1 million. Pine trees have been here they're an old tree, millions of years. Anything that's lasted that long is a good bet to count on. So native plants have evolved in this area. They're adapted to the weather here. What's the weather here like?
Right.
Dry, so they don't need as much water. So that's good for your pocketbook too. Yeah. The only thing about native plants, I have to say, Louis is going to laugh at this, is that they're not always very colorful. If you look at a very native California landscape, it's pretty flat, right?
That's not true. I mean, the sea notes still in bloom and. all
Yeah,
the
that's true.
salvia.
That's true. Okay, I'll take it
You
back.
need to have it seasonal, like you have the
Yeah.
spring native.
Yes.
Mixed with the fall native.
Right, that's right. Maybe that's. how to
There you
do
go.
it.
And
But that's a natural thing
Not
too,
sick
right?
of the tumbleweeds in my backyard.
But you know that we were at the university. You missed that, right?
and they
Saturday.
said-
And there's a lot of
They put a lot
sustainable
of-
landscaping.
Yeah,
And we were looking at one place and it was just this really cool grass. It was a nice looking grass, but it was very gray, green. Whole field, it was just a whole field, not much color. But then a guy did a fish sculpture with bright red
oh, I've
colors.
seen it, yeah.
Yeah, and so I was telling our guy, I said, that's how to do this. You have all that flat thing and then you have a few
And then
accents.
you put a pop of color.
Yeah. But I mean, Lewis could appreciate it. I actually like that landscape.
I think if it's
fun of it.
modern, technique to do this one mass, that's fine.
Well, yeah, that's actually something that's kind of new too, isn't it? To do that, like a whole field was,
Right, they just did it because it was low maintenance.
yeah, maybe.
What's
Yeah.
that grass called?
I don't know. It
Is
was
it like deer grass?
Yeah, something.
It was nice looking, but it was just uniform, so it was kind of boring. So, but that's not,
But for an institution,
that's right.
you can't be.
And with
turning
institutions,
it out every day.
and with institutions and homes, you can jazz it up with there, right? Because you want those to look. All right, so what makes topsoil, no, am I crossing that out? Yeah, but let's answer it anyway. What makes topsoil healthy?
Oh, I should know that.
Well,
And Lewis can't answer this one.
I know, keep my mouth shut.
It takes
Mulch.
millions of years.
You got
for it to-
mulch.
it gets
And what does it
mulch.
do? What does that do in that time?
It gets-
What are the things that it does that keeps it healthy?
Different.
Moisture.
What?
Well, there's different,
Moisture.
there's different
Stuff that helps
More
extra.
secure, did you say?
moisture.
Moisture. Yes. What about moisture?
Oh.
Because all these little animals
Yeah,
that
all
are
the
around it,
little
when it's healthy, they dig burrows, right? Holes. So it's got
It's
no-
more fertile, it's.
Yeah, what's the word for fluffy soil?
Like aerated.
Aerated is another-
spongy.
Yeah,
Well,
so it gets that way over time, and the water can just soak right down
The
into
the
it.
ideal soil consistency is called loam.
Loam, yeah.
LOAM.
Yeah, so loamy soil, so, so
It's
These-
LOAM.
these animals and microbes, like there's worms and bacteria, and I mean, there's dozens of species in there. They eat stuff and turn it over, and they make holes, and just, and that stuff's really important for the soil. And it, you say, well, why even mention microbes and worms and stuff? Because they're in the soil automatically, but that's just it. The way we deal with soil is we put herbicides on it so the weeds don't grow, and insecticides so insects don't eat our plants. And those poisons go down and kill the things in the soil, so they no longer make that stuff that's good for it. So it's because we wrecked that cycle that we have to now talk about it as something to value. And
It seems to me like in construction, it's typical to, take the whole lot, the parcel before you build.
right,
But there should be set aside a zone that doesn't get contaminated.
Yeah.
You know you're not gonna build it.
yeah, that used to be one of my questions. Maybe I'll bring it back. I mean, it was on here, but I've asked it so many times. But trucks weigh so much, and
Yeah. like
not just trucks, but you have
all the equipment.
post digging equipment and you name it, and it just flattens that topsoil. It's not made to withstand thousands of pounds, so. You should really limit where they can go in your yard. Everyone wants to get things angled right up, but if you got enough labor that that's not a problem, you can get stuff from one end to the other. Yeah, I mean. Mike's Lewis's boss or
Canella.
teacher, Mike Canella, in his room has a picture of soil. It's a animated drawing. It's not a photograph. And it shows all the, just hundreds of things in it. I mean, it's like a little city. And it really shows you what goes on.
Yeah, who here sprays Roundup? Anybody?
Love it.
Yeah.
Stuff is so good.
Yeah, cool. That blue drink.
Yeah, man, love Roundup.
He's
Well, if
ready
you,
for a
if
lot. He's ready to get
if
the-
you watch TV, there's
The
class
men,
action
right?
suits
Yeah.
now for it, right?
Yeah, I hope nobody's spraying it. And if your boss or your
They-
homeowner tells you to, just tell them no.
I know, and what they do is they have
Not worth it.
They have different brands with different names.
You're
There's
gonna
one
get
that
cancer or
they were
something.
using ours, we had to get rid of. I said, well, it's not Roundup, and then I looked it up and it's,
got the same-
Glyphosate, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, stay away from that stuff.
So, there-
Just use vinegar and table salt, soap.
yeah,
Or you can use
Yeah.
citric acid, or there's a lot of natural things you can use instead.
yeah.
But the stuff you buy, like at Home Depot, is consumer grade, right? It's not like the, like
could
the
still-
concentrated stuff.
Advertisement told you?
No, I'm just saying.
No, there's any of it, like, you see people not wearing coveralls and stuff, spraying it. and,
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the
that's
people
so
that get
bad.
it. Homeowners
Yeah.
don't get so much of it, but
Our old head of our grounds department got cancer, and
Wow.
back when they were using it,
wow.
yeah,
On TV, they have class action suit ads. I see them all the time.
Roundup.
For Roundup.
Themioma or something, is it?
Yeah,
We go weed killer. it's gonna be the first-
but you can get equal effectiveness from
Wanna try?
alternatives, but they're more costly and they take more work, which is, you can do that, but it's better to kind of relax your need for perfect, weedless, or pull things by hand,
Yeah.
put
pull
some
it by
labor
hand.
into it.
Pull it by hand.
Yeah, if you've got the attitude that I just want something I can apply to it, there are alternatives, but sometimes they're not, they take longer and not as good. And, but if you don't mind weeding by hand, I love weeding. I wish I had more time. I actually think it's kind of fun. But, yeah, that stuff just kills your soil. What the interesting thing is, it will provide more place for your plants, like herbicides and insecticides that people are getting to eat. So you get temporary efficiency, right? You get less eaten crops, and then you use artificial manure, and you get that spike in the plants, so they look really good. But over time, you're just killing the soil. So you have to keep doing that. So soil never gets better. And then all that stuff eventually runs off to the ocean anyway.
Yeah, SCCC got in trouble for that.
So it's,
Yeah.
you know, I think we've just gotta, there's so many things out there like permaculture, and then there's that Japanese guy, the one straw revolution. Did you ever read
Oh,
that?
yeah, no pruning.
That's probably not even,
No prune agriculture.
Yeah, like for trees. and
yeah,
stuff,
and
they
if you
let
just
it
grow
go.
everything together, there's no rows, so
Yeah,
this Japanese guy figured this out. I don't know, is that still relevant? Do people still read that?
yeah, some people, yeah.
Because it was big like 20, 30 years ago, but there's just, we just know so much to avoid the bad stuff, you know?
Yeah,
But we don't get taught it enough, right?
right.
You know, you're taking a class in it, it'll be mentioned in this class, and that's it. General education doesn't touch that.
Yeah, there's not very many horticulture programs out.
And there aren't many horticulture
unfortunately.
programs, which is.
Yeah.
So that's ass backwards.
Or people just aren't interested in where their food comes from.
Oh, I did unerase that. Since compaction disturbs topsoil and drainage, what can be done to protect it during construction?
Yeah.
You know, they say that where your house is gonna go, like say you got a new lot, doesn't have a house on it. Where your house is gonna go, to take that, one of the things they used to say was to cut out all that topsoil and move it.
Right.
But the topsoil here is not that old, and it's not that thick in most of Santa Barbara and Goleta. It's a smaller layer because there's that big hard pan underneath. I don't think it'd be worth moving that from underneath the footprint of the house. What do you think, Louis?
I wouldn't,
You know, because I've tried to move it before and it kind of just falls apart as you move it.
yeah.
It's not like real old stuff that kind of maintains its. I would do it for as much of the yard as I could, but, you know, don't
Might be
worry.
more work. than it's
Yeah,
worth.
it's kind of,
Why not just amend it after the?
yeah,
fact?
it's kind of cost ineffective for what's right under your house.
Yeah.
If I was at a property that had farmland and had good soil for hundreds of years, you know, and then I might, you know, do something different.
But when you do a lot of construction and mixing, you know, whatever, concrete or stuff or tiling, it's good to designate a zone.
Yeah,
For sure.
oh, yeah, and, you know, construction workers will just drive their trucks anywhere, right? They're
Yeah.
just lazy and kind of,
And just throw the trash all over.
yeah, so, yeah, you gotta lay down, you can put caution tape around and, you know, really do
Kind of
it.
make a zone. that's-
Yeah, and say, look, you know, I
this
mean
is
this,
your
you
dump
guys.
spot for
I'm
the-
fine, I'm getting your boss to fine you, I'm gonna kick you off the job if you do this. Okay, let's move on to gray water. So, can we use gray water in the garden?
Yes.
Depends on what.
Yeah, maybe
Yes
not
and
your
no.
Vegetables,
Where can't we use it? And then everything else will be okay.
not your vegetables. Lettuce,
Yeah, vegetables in the ground.
okay, carrots.
You can't use gray water there if you want to eat the vegetables. You can eat anything off a tree because the trunk of a tree filters water as it goes up. So by the time it gets to the plant, it's pretty clean.
So not annuals with perennials.
If you're gonna, if they're not, if you don't eat them, you can put them on.
Yeah, if you don't eat them, yeah, if they're not edible, anything, yeah, water your, whatever you want. But if you got a garden where you're eating this stuff, you don't want to have that water. Because this, well, we're talking about, okay, we're talking about, well, that applies to all gray water, but we're talking about laundry to yard gray water, because that's the system a lot of people are using now. And you can use, because they're afraid people won't use the right soap, if you buy the what's it called? Biodegradable, or they have other names now, bio enhancing soaps, then that's fine. But they can't always, you can't always trust people to do that.
What's this stuff called, Oasis? Is that what it's called?
That's his,
Language?
that's his brand.
Yeah.
And I think he sold it, so I don't know if it's kept the name or not, but Yeah, that's okay, but you know, you can't count on everybody doing that. And also your clothes may have toxins in them that you don't notice when you throw, like, you have work pants, you're a mechanic and you've got a lot of oil and crap on your jeans, goes into the laundry, goes out to the yard. So if you were careful and you could guarantee that the water wasn't going to be polluted and you use a decent soap, then that's not an issue.
Right, not salt based.
Yeah. But it's really great to be able to do that because water costs money, so. Oh, since gray water ends up in the garden, what kind of laundry soap should we use? We just talked about that. They used to call it biodegradable. That's kind of an old name. That just means nature will accept it, it'll degrade naturally. Whereas some things actually don't degrade very quickly, but they have new names now for that. A couple of them, they've gotten more specific, like. I don't know. So we talked about the gray water laundry, the garden systems can be made without a permit. True or false?
True.
In California,
True.
true.
Can you say that again?
Yeah.
I know that's a trick question.
Yeah,
You don't need a permit for gray water system.
you don't need a permit if you do the, only that once, the laundry to garden system. If you take gray water from your shower and your kitchen sink and your bathroom sinks, you wouldn't do it from the toilet, but from all of those, you can't, you have to get a permit to do that. And they have to look at the system.
So you can do it, but with the.
You can do it, yeah, but you have to have a permit and
So laundry without.
yeah, the
others.
laundry doesn't take one, and that, the guy, Art Ludwig, the guy who does that film, he went up and lobbied for that. So it's really great. Anytime you can avoid the building department gets.
permit in California?
Yeah.
Great water.
For
Yeah,
laundry.
for
The
just that one
do
system,
not.
if you take the laundry water to your garden.
They are moving systems. The guy. Yeah.
Yeah, Art Ludwig, yeah, he and the, I forget the woman's name, she used to come here and talk about the water. She was in the city water program.
Kathy?
No, I think he was saying it's somebody else, not Captain.
And yeah, they went up and lobbied and got it done, which I think is really great. Because you don't want to fool with that. And then he has a whole film to do it. If anybody's interested, let me know. And somebody said they have them in the library, they probably have them all over. Because he's made it available free. He asked for contributions if you feel like it, you know. He's not a big, what do they call that? Like with computer where open
Open source.
source. He's kind of an open source guy, which is great. He doesn't care about money. He's got a nice home near a place where he swims and life is good, so he's not worried about it. Okay, then the other thing we want to do about in the yard, we're still talking about the site kind of, is when it rains a lot and you got a lot of rainwater running across your yard, we don't want it to go in the storm drains if possible, you know, they're outside our yards on the street. So we want to stop it in the yard. So anybody remember ways you can do that?
A giant tank in your yard,
Giant what?
a giant water tank in your
Yeah,
backyard under the ground
yeah,
with gutters going to it.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. You could do a
Water catchment,
catchment system with a tank, yeah.
permeable surface.
Permeable services, yes. And catch basins are a little different than that because they're just for the general water, not just water off your roof. But, and sometimes we call catch basins swales or rain gardens. Yeah, rain gardens. You know,
If someone put, make a moat around your house, is that a good answer?
Moat.
yeah, well, a moat would be
It
fine.
could help with fire prevention.
If it, yeah, if it drained, if it just filled up and went over the edge.
Imagine a mold.
But if it moats around your whole yard, it's gonna be pretty big. It'll
I
probably
could say you
contain
need space for that.
any rainwater.
Probably lose it all in evaporation.
Why don't we want the water that runs across the yard to end up in the sewer?
Wait, what was that?
Why, this isn't on the test. Why don't we want the rainwater that runs over the yard and then outside of the street and down the rain?
Well, it depends if you're
Storm drain.
in Texas or if you're in California, I imagine, right?
Well, everywhere, if it's your yard and you've got a garden or
You
grass.
want to absorb as much water as you can.
Yeah, okay, well, yeah, that's a
Your own
good,
yard.
yeah, that's a good reason too, to keep the water there. But if you're not interested in that,
Float
When-
the water tables? Underground?
well, that's part of the same thing, yeah. Those are positive. I was thinking of the negative reason.
Erosion or contaminant?
No, yeah, contaminants, because if it runs across grass, you may be using Roundup on your grass.
Or nitrogen, high nitrogen.
Or high nitrogen fertilizer, a number of things. And the water going, the rainwater absorb that and take it out to eventually the ocean, and it's not good.
Create algal bloom.
Creates algae blooms and stuff, so.
Why don't they just use that stuff for gray water systems? Put that stuff into a gray water system and then recycle the water.
You talking about runoff?
Yeah, all the runoff. And so, because it's still all pretty much good water.
Yeah,
Well, if it's going over.
Here it's
the
good.
streets and driveways,
New York, it's
necessarily because of all the
been questionable
oil
over the
and
years.
stuff.
Biohazard, you can filter it.
they're on the
You need
wrong
like a
end.
bio-
Even though it's a biohazard.
Use them for gray.
Yeah,
You need a biofilter.
they get all that acid rain from the Great Lakes and everything, but, or any place west.
Easier said than done.
Yeah, so we want to hold on to the water, but we also don't want it to go because it can collect toxins along the way. I mean, if you know your yard's clean, although you don't know what's been done before you moved in there, but if you've had that house for a long time and you've always made it organic and treated it right, it's probably not a big issue. Most, I don't know if we talked about this, so I'll just give you this one. Most indoor water conservation comes from efficient appliances and careful usage. So that means when you're saving water on the inside, it means you've got your toilet's not flushing a lot of water, your shower's not using too much. And these things are also governed by code. So a new house will automatically be okay, but an old house won't be up to code. So you'll be, you won't be conserving water with those old things. You know, shower faucets don't cost that much. You know, it's easy to get a new one, fairly new one, and that will really help. Even if the government's not making you do it, you know.
The shower heads or the faucet?
I meant the head, the shower head. You can get those. They're pretty reasonable.
Those little aerators. So
Yeah, and the have areas.
I don't know.
That's one of the big problems at work is the aerators get clogged.
Yeah,
We're on very hard water out.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, you have to really
Calcium.
be careful with your water.
It's not filtered at all. It's just pumps.
so and then efficient appliances, you know, like appliances are using less water now, you know, dishwashers and washing machines and so it's good to use those. I mean, if you've already got some, it's expensive to buy new ones, so. But that's where most water conservation comes from. Efficient appliances that including the plumbing parts, and the second part was careful usage. That means you're careful not to waste water in how you use it. So those are the two ways we conserve water on the inside of a house. You know, not letting the water run while you're brushing your teeth and, you know, you've heard all the stories, stuff you can do. I always take, since I lived in Maine, I'm hooked on hot baths. So whenever I get really cold or in the winter, I take a lot of baths, which doesn't conserve water. It's my one splurge.
Yeah, how
Showers
many
are so
gallons
much
is
less
that? Like 40 gallons or something?
But you'd use it to water your garden.
Well, you know, it's funny. I know.
There you go.
Well, my mother used to, you know how you turn on the shower and it's cold for too long? Why is it so? I never can figure that out. The pipe's only going 50 feet and it takes like minutes. I'm just stupid. I'm missing something somewhere. My mother used to take buckets. She lived on a ground floor and fill them up until it got warm. And then she'd haul them out to her garden
Strong.
when she was
mom.
in her 80s.
Wow.
I mean, it's not a lot, probably is insignificant, but it's a good attitude though. You know, it shows you're thinking about something and wanting to solve it. I live at my bath's on the second floor shower, so I don't.
Pour it out the window.
You can pour out the
I thought about making,
Well, you
my
can have a
wife,
balcony.
you know, if I lived by myself, I'd have all these homemade things to do that. You know, like a little thing outside the window that you, or a little pipe that, you know, you take a valve and it goes out the window. My wife won't have it, so.
Get one of those fountain water pumps and it can be like a little hose too.
Yeah,
Submersible
Hide it in the
pump.
closet so your wife doesn't see it.
You have a submersible pump.
Right.
Just don't
Right.
plug it in while you're.
Well, you know, they have that, we studied that, right, where they have those,
Some pumps.
well, they have those systems that you can take the cold water back to the
Oh, yeah. it's
a water
recirculating
tank
pump.
until it's hot, and the sensor changes it so it comes straight in your shower and doesn't go back. But that's great. I wish they'd require that in all new plumbing. I still don't think they do. Which is insane, because in new plumbing, it wouldn't cost that much to do. Okay, done with the yard. Daylighting, what is daylighting? I'm not gonna answer. You guys can answer that. It's not, I'll give you a hint. It doesn't have anything to do with heating.
Lighting.
Yeah, lighting.
Like
it's a-
Skylights,
lighting.
skylights and
Yeah, just ways
light
that,
placement,
it's just really ways to bring natural light into your home.
natural light
Yeah.
position. Skylights, solar tubes.
Yeah, so you know, when you define one of these, examples are a good idea, like Era's doing, give examples if you can. Otherwise, just give it definitions. Then passive solar, because I want you guys to remember some of this. Passive solar is dear to my heart. So requires passive, this is true or false. Passive solar heating requires extra window area and proportional thermal mass. So that's like the key to it right there in that sentence. Obviously, if you're gonna heat with sunshine, you need to have it come into your house. You need bigger, more window space. That stands to reason. But then the problem with more window space is that if you don't have thermal mass, masonry or some dense material to absorb that heat, the air will get heated up only. And if the air gets too heated up, it'll just be impossible, be too hot to live in. So you don't want the ambient air hot. That defeats the whole purpose. So there's a proportion of how much mass you'll need for the amount of window opening. I won't ask you for the formulas and any of that because that's too much, but
Extra credit if we do.
if you can, well, you got them written down probably.
Yeah.
I found a sheet actually that had them all really neat. Maybe I'll turn that out.
Can you give us an equation too that we can solve?
What was the full statement, Pat? Passive solar heating requires extra window area plus.
Proportional thermal mass. So thermal mass is just mass that collects heat. And that's like concrete walls or concrete floor or sheetrock and walls or multiple layers of sheetrock and walls.
Or
You know,
water.
like I said, I went to direct relief because I was scouting it out for a field trip. They had huge windows in the lobby. I mean, they were 20, 30 feet high and 30 feet wide. And so I was waiting for a guy too long. He finally never came and I left, but I was waiting. And I was sitting down and I started calculating how much mass I needed for that window. And I noticed that the walls were concrete because industrial buildings are often, or commercial buildings, often concrete walls. So they had nice, at least one really good thermal wall, and then they had a good floor. Wasn't enough though. So, and then I noticed that they had, I could hear the air conditioning in the background. And it was a new place. It's probably got state-of-the-art air conditioning. So they don't worry about it. It's a lead building, but they didn't get their lead by
Well, it's thermal mass.
passive heating.
If you, uh,
2 little thermal mass for the amount of solar glazing will overheat a house. True or false? Don't answer out loud.
Repeat.
2 little thermal mass for the amount of glazing will overheat a house. We just talked about that, right? It's true. if you don't have enough mass, too little mass for the amount of window, it'll overheat the house.
In
And then
the
I,
summer
and,
months,
huh?
in the hot months.
Yeah.
And it'd be miserably cold in the
no,
winter,
people
right?
in cold months too.
What was that, Zach?
Yeah, you know, in the book, in your book,
Yeah.
they have a picture of a house in Colorado. In the light chapter. Or no, it's the beginning.
Miserably cold in the winter.
I was gonna say in the winter.
Yeah, you don't get colder than Colorado, not much. And people, they have such great views, a lot of people, right? They're in the mountains themselves. And they would have giant windows and then the houses would just, they were built out of wood. There was no mass at all, right? They would totally overheat. So yeah, that's actually not an intuitive thing, that a house could overheat in the winter, but it happens. Okay, and then I asked, what is gray water? So the best thing to do is eliminate what isn't gray water. Two things aren't gray water. Potable water, and you should know this, so I'll write on the board. So that just means drinkable. And you can say drinkable, but you can drink, actually you can drink anything, but that's drinkable without getting sick. So it's-
Healthy water.
So the one, it's a good word, it stands for a lot, so potable, or potable, yeah, they say potable water is the water that comes out of your sink that you can drink. And it's been purified, right? Gray water doesn't have to be that purified because you're not gonna drink it. So, you know, they could, you know, that ag water that they have that comes from the sewer plant and goes to all the parks in town,
Mhm.
that's not potable water, although they say you can drink it because it's, but they don't want to take a chance if for some reason the batch has more bacteria. So they'll say that the non-potable water goes in the purple hoses or tubes, you know. So gray water is not potable water, and it's not black water. So black water is toilet water. You see where it gets its name. Isn't Blackwater the name of that group of
TV shows.
Mercenary company.
mercenaries?
Zach.
Is that Michael? Zach?
Have you used
Good
it
call.
before, Zach?
I just know things.
The Name of those mercenaries.
Okay, sure.
You don't want to know.
That group, wasn't the brother of the Secretary of Education?
Yeah, Betsy DeVos.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Oh, boy, you know, we fight wars and we send out over all these mercenaries and we call them, what do we call them?
Private military contractors, PMCs.
BMC, military contract.
Yeah, contractors, yeah.
Isn't that weird that that's the name, Blackwater?
I know. I'm hoping that this war in Ukraine makes us see how totally stupid war is altogether. And then we just don't want anything to do with any kind of war ever. That would be the best outcome of this.
Yeah, I just spent $83 on gas.
Whoa.
I'd pay $1,000 a gallon for gas if I could be promised no more war in the future.
Yeah, that'd be all right.
All right.
Couldn't fly to Australia.
Yeah. I know.
$5 now.
It's just, anyway, see Blackwater, get you right off. So
Have you seen pictures of lithium ion?
So black water is toilet water, and actually we have treatments for that, right? We have septic tanks and leach fields, that's the old way. There's some new ideas too, which is really kind of interesting for doing it. People are really trying to sustainably get rid of this stuff without having to. When you go to a big sewer plant, it's costly. The big sewer plants cost a fortune to make and to run. And so we're trying to find local, small alternatives. There's actually a lot of, if you look up sewer treatment or sewer treatment alternatives in the internet, you'll Wikipedia, yeah, you'll see a lot of really great alternatives. So gray water is not deep, so that means
It's in between.
typically, yeah. So gray water is wastewater from sinks bathtub, shower. I think that's it, right? Oh,
Laundry.
laundry, washing machine and dishwasher.
So in new construction homes, are they plumbing the house different to make sure the water from the sink, dishwasher, shower, laundry machine goes to gray water system?
No,
Or no?
Because it's not required. It costs more to do that. I think they will require it in 5 years.
Well, I think you need to have the right amount of space, exterior space too.
Well, I'm not thinking more like
Right?
exterior, I'm like, have like a sewer system that goes to gray water instead of everything from your sink go to the black water
Right.
system. I mean, it's just another pipe right next in the street.
Oh, you mean have the gray water go, do the black water, do the toilet?
Yeah,
Yeah, no, they'll probably have those too. We're so far from what can be done. But there's no reason why your toilet needs drinkable water, right? Except a lot of times your dog goes in there and drinks out of it, but dogs are exempt. Nothing kills them anyway, so they can drink out of the toilet, no matter what it is. But you don't need drinking water in the toilet. You need it in the bath. You don't want gray water in the bath when you're taking a bath because you absorb through your skin. So that should be potable water too. But yeah, there's no reason why you couldn't. Yeah, and people do that. They should make it a requirement.
I was thinking like new, like track homes.
Well, but here's the-
should be
here-
doing that.
But here's the thing, you'd have to get it from, you have to be careful because stuff that goes into the sink, like your kitchen sink, you've got a garbage disposal and that churns it up to make it go in the water, but it doesn't clean it. So there's a lot of kitchen debris that's going down there. So if you use that for a toilet, the toilet might have a little piece of carrot or broccoli in it.
Well, you have to have it very filtered.
Yeah, you have to filter it, but you can filter it. Yeah,
You have to have a diverter, I think, on any gray water.
yeah.
But
You know-
one thing though is you do need to have significant water to get your sewer line flushed out.
Yeah,
And that's the benefit of having your gray water go through your black water.
right.
It's because if it's only black water, can you imagine? It's not that many gallons.
No, I know. Well, but maybe we need to redo the whole thing.
Yeah, why don't we all just use
Yeah.
compost and toilets?
Well, that's what it leads to. You're right. There's a transition period when you have to make sure, it's the same thing with solar panels. We're trying to eliminate fossil fuel, but when we do, there won't be any grid that we can use for night
Right,
because there's no fossil fuel running it.
right.
So I thought of that the minute I learned about this. And when I went to Germany, they were working on it. They're thinking about it a lot. So they have smaller grid, microgrid is really better for that.
Right.
But then you gotta have a lot more storage, your own storage or
Batteries.
community storage, which we're making headway on. But that's why I think bioregional, I keep pitching bioregional because I want everyone to. But if you're just in charge of your community, like say it's Santa Barbara proper, or I designed from Carpinteria to Gaviota is one place, because where the mountains kind of come down there. It's not a big place, but if we control all of our own government, we could do these kind of things. We could make our own grids. We could make our own local and residential, more sewage treatment. Because would be a smaller scale, so you can tackle it on a small scale. And then act as a model to get everybody around the world to start doing it. People are around the world doing it, especially in poorer places where they have to figure things out. There's a lot more innovations going on in South America and Central America and Philippines and places out of necessity. And there's a lot to learn from that. Okay, so black water is toilet water because it's darker, so they call it black water. And then gray water. So anything from those sinks can be taken out to outside and dumped in the soil. You have to get a permit for everything but the laundry. They've started with the laundry first and said, okay, you don't even need a permit. They have recommendations when you do it. They'll tell you, don't let it go into place where you're pulling up lettuce. Make sure it's just around trees or ornamentals or stuff. There's a few guidelines, but they're not, but nobody actually tells you. You should figure out what it's about, even though it's not going through the city. And if you take any book or look at any art other stuff, you'll find out instantly what it's all about. his thing's great because he tells, and then he's got a switch that will go to the sewer in case something goes wrong. He can always just,
That's the diverter.
yeah, so that's important. He's engineering.
Water is also, I guess, reclamation water, right?
No, the reclaimed is different.
Is what?
Reclaimed.
Reclaimed.
Now, gray water is coming directly from your own house. or-
Yeah, but it goes into the sewer along with all your water, if you don't have a gray water system, and all that goes to the plant, the industrial plant at the ocean. And then they refine, they take the sludge out of it, they let the solids, food and poop and everything settle. And then they run they have a whole process, they run it through several stages of purifying it. They can purify it to potable level. And they're playing with doing it. It's a lot more for people to get used to, the stomach. But they can do it. It costs a little bit more, but that's one solution they're looking at. So I think a composting thing, a local, smaller community or house composting would be better, but
Reclaimed water is just, it doesn't go through the final process.
yeah,
Or it is,
reclaimed water is all that stuff.
But it just doesn't go through.
It doesn't go through the
purifying.
final one to make it drinkable. But it's pretty clean, even though it's not drinkable, because they use it for landscaping in parks and stuff. You know, they know your dogs. will drink it.
Gray water. reclaimed
Yeah, yeah.
It's not gray water,
No, it's every water from the sewer, gray water and black water.
but it's treated.
Yeah.
Reclaimed water.
Yeah, it's treated. That's a whole fertile area of technological innovation. And we should see, that's pretty. They've got the filtering down to forcing water through really small tubes, but it takes, like distillation, desalinizations that way. And it's adequate, it does the job, but it's very expensive. You need a lot of energy because you're forcing something through. And, we can do it all with solar energy, and that's like a good temporary fix. But it'd be great if we could figure out some alternatives.
They use bacteria at the wastewater treatment plant.
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of future
To
in
break it down.
microbes breaking down.
Yeah, they use bacteria.
Bacteria will break down nuclear waste.
Ah, There you go.
Those, I guess, no, they're not animals. Well, they're animals as opposed to plant.
Prokaryotes.
Yeah, they're so simple that a lot of toxins don't even bother them because they don't have enough complexity to be
Oh, there you go.
goofed up. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
So yeah, they can treat radioactive stuff too. I love it. There's so much future in that. We've neglected microbes for so long.
It's the water bears, right? They're like these mini microscopic bear-looking organisms.
Yeah.
that can, like survive radioactivity, or you can freeze them. You can send them into space, and they'll survive.
Yeah, in fact, we think, maybe
Mars.
life came from those coming through asteroids
Oh, from the,
because they're foolproof.
We'll get through
Comets.
this test eventually, guys.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
What? What?
I said we'll get through this test eventually.
Yeah,
guys,
yeah.
Don't worry.
Okay. Um,
Too many tangents.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay, dual flush toilet. I'm gonna ask you what that is. That's pretty simple. And then what is a composting toilet? So Mike, what's the definition of composting in general? Like,
You just call me.
uh-oh.
huh?
You just call me Mike.
I did. Look, what's the,
Not even close. One of my coworkers does that all the time to me too. He calls
Yeah.
me like,
what's the definition of composting in agriculture?
I think it's just the breakdown of organic molecules. for the
Yeah,
pH,
okay.
right?
Okay, so compost is a breakdown. So we're talking about in residents, we're talking about breaking down.
Typically
Solid
need an
waste.
energy source, a quick energy source, whether it's electric or propane or for the composting toilets, right?
Give them-
No, it depends.
Okay.
Some of them don't use anything. They're slower.
So, yeah,
Some have a fan, a little fan, and some have a heat.
right.
A little heat, which costs a little bit of electricity, not a lot.
So I've seen where some of them are using like propane, if you're out in the sticks, if you're not electricity.
Yeah, those are older type. I mean, yeah, you don't want to use fossil fuel. Then you're doing something organic. I mean, doing something sustainable, nothing not. But yeah, I mean, I had to research it when we were going to do one for the tiny home, and we
Okay.
actually bought one really expensive, like it was a couple $1,000
Yeah.
bucks. But it's no smell. I mean, well, I haven't tried it.
But it uses electricity, right?
No,
Doesn't?
yeah, it's pretty good. So, and those are just gonna keep getting better. 'Cause
Yeah.
We're figuring that out. I mean, you know, they could have a thing where they have all these bacteria and stuff that we're talking
Take
about.
away.
You could just get a little shipment of that, it'd be easy. Be like sending chickens, you know, little chickens around the country. Anybody ever ordered chickens?
Yeah,
Got them in a box with little-
yeah. I picked them
It's
up
so
from the post
insane.
office and they're in a little box squeaking.
Yeah, they're live chickens and they have enough to eat.
All the postal workers loved it. It was funny.
Yeah. So they could just send little, you know, dissolvable things with bacteria, you know,
It's a little chicken box.
composting toilet. It's all coming. Okay,
Little Sea monkeys.
Got them shipped from Missouri.
Yeah. And the chicken.
Yeah.
so the main thing about a composting toilet, I don't remember how much we've talked about it, is that it doesn't use water. So, you know, toilets use a lot of water and that's why they keep trying to bring the flush
And
max.
you don't need a septic tank or a sewer.
Yeah, and you don't need any treatment
That's the
stuff
big deal.
either.
You can tiny homes or,
Yeah.
right?
So I've lived in houses with, I've made my own composting toilets in houses in Maine. And they were great. I mean, I'm a fan.
How long roughly does it take to break it down?
Well, that's a great question. It depends on the
where.
climate.
Ah,
In Maine, in the winter, it freezes. But I built a whole block wall chamber under my toilet and it just went in there and froze. So you couldn't smell it. It was just suspended until spring came. And then and when you use it, you're always putting sawdust chips or peat moss. Peat moss is the best, but it's funny. We have to send for peat moss when half the world has peat moss everywhere around it. But here it's exotic, so we have to buy it.
What's the difference between that and an outhouse, like a latrine?
Well, you're speeding it a little bit. And then well, it's, the difference is that you can have it inside your home. And if you've ever been in an outhouse in the winter,
Yeah, I know.
it's not fun.
You shouldn't use peat though. It's not sustainable. You shouldn't
Depends where
use
you're at, I guess,
peat.
right?
Yeah, well, this toilet I got had peat. They send you some and then they have a place to get it, but
Yeah,
most of them you just use, I've always just used sawdust.
yeah, sawdust is.
Because sawdust absorbs the urine too, so it's really good.
Yeah.
And you know, you have to monkey with urine. That's a problem. If you use sawdust, it covers it enough so you don't get the smell. And wood chip sawdust smells good too. So it's a great thing.
That's a great thing.
So I'll send you a picture.
Some people make diverters, and some of the composting toilets have diverters for your urine that kind of come in if you need it. And then it goes down a drain to a different place. So yeah, they have all kinds of combinations, but I did it because I just wanted to see what it was about. Well, I lived way in the boonies too, in the woods. Well, you know, what's his name? Microsoft, Bill Gates did that contest for a
Oh, right.
really good composting toilet.
I just.
He had a worldwide
I think the
contest.
name of one, right?
But they were all really high engineered solutions, which I thought was stupid. You know, we don't want to spend a lot of money to make something simple. We want to have it simple.
You can drink that water after that. With that toilet,
Yeah,
apparently.
right. Well, and they have, you know, I don't think I talked to you about living those sewer systems that have barrels of they're aquatic and they have special plants and shrimp and fish. And they go from one to the other, and they can reduce solid waste to potable water at the end of those too.
And then you eat the shrimp.
Yeah, so we know how to make those now, and they actually use them for sewer treatment places too. There's been quite a few experiments. So we should all be using that. They have experiments and it gets slow before everybody starts doing it, but this couple, the Todds in Massachusetts pioneered all this stuff, really great.
Just don't use catfish in that.
Yeah,
They like to get bigger, don't
Too big and aggressive.
they? So,
okay, in California, gray water systems from laundry can be installed without a permit. It's true. I don't know about the rest of the country, but okay, what is the Energy Star label for appliances? We didn't talk about it a lot, a little bit we did, but any of you bought any appliances lately? Or families have bought appliances?
This is the last question.
there's an Energy Star label on every appliance. Gives you the rating of how much electricity
Yeah.
is used per hour,
Yeah,
per
it's
year.
it's an energy, efficiency rating. If you go to any store now, it's that yellow stick-on thing. It's really caught on. I think it's hard to find things that aren't Energy Star. Usually they're cheaper if they aren't Energy Star. I mean, they're real cheap, so they have one version for someone who can't afford it. And then the rest are varying degrees of Energy Star. They have comparative energy use on them. Energy Star started as a development house, a way of labeling the whole house efficiency. And then it went into appliances, which has been really great. EPA started it. The sun's rays are a form of radiation, true or false? True. It is green to use less electricity in the house because, and I list 4 things. One involves it's made from polluting fossil fuel. That's not an answer, right? Oh, wait, no. Yeah, that's not an answer. Electricity costs money. Fossil fuels are a limited resource and will someday be used up. Yeah, the answer is all of the above. I'm too tired to go through it.
So they say fossil fuels are gonna eventually get all used up, but so will lithium mines.
Yeah.
So then we won't have stuff for our Teslas.
You know, there used to be a thing. I used to have one called, I don't think I do, peak oil. Before renewables got really big, it was when peak oil would arrive. In other words, that we used half of the oil and it was going to be downhill after
Oh,
that.
that used to be like in 2000.
Yeah, that was a huge topic.
Now
Yeah,
it's like, what, 2050?
I know I had posters and everything and now it's gone. It's not even, it's
We keep
gone.
finding more oil.
Yeah. So, but now we don't want to use oil, not because it's not going to be there, but because it's up in greenhouse too much. Okay, the common traditional light bulb is what? Let's just label them and then you can answer any question.
Incandescent.
Incandescent, right? See there? That's what the old, that old light bulb.
Yeah.
I think everybody's had those. I'm not
That is.
too young yet. Right? And then that was an old one. Yeah.
What was the question again? Sorry.
Oh, I'm not gonna give you the question. I'm just gonna give you the types and you can answer the questions from it.
What types of light bulbs?
So, and then we had those fluorescent, but let's not even talk about those because they didn't last. We're not using them. They had mercury, they had to be specially.
Oh, the little curly Q ones?
Yeah.
Well, they're in here.
Yeah, I know. They have LED ones that these,
You can convert these to LEDs, you just
Yeah.
have bigger capacitor. out.
yeah, and
I'm
I'm
gonna
not sure,
say they don't always work, but yeah.
I'm not sure these haven't already been done that way. 'Cause
These
they-
are probably red fluorescent. You have to change out the fixture if you want.
Well, they work
We
on
don't
this
take out
stuff. The
pictures,
schools
like,
work
just
on this
remove
stuff.
the
a lot.
ballasts.
They're always in here
I
improving
think
things.
you can see the tubes.
Can you see the?
Yes.
No, they would still be the tubes.
They still are
We have them at work, LEDs, you can convert these to LEDs, because we had it fluorescents, and then we converted to LEDs, and there you get this. Take the, pretty much the black capacitor out, and
Okay.
rewire it.
That one's coming down a little bit, just pull it and see.
When ballast is tucked in,
Incandescent, fluorescent, and
Yeah, so we don't, some of my questions involve fluorescent, but we're not even using those now. So
skip it away.
it's just between incandescent and LED. So LED are cheaper. No, now they're cheaper.
Well, they're cheaper now than.
Yeah, they're
Couple
cheaper
years
now
We're getting better.
They're not cheap.
and they last longer.
sometimes,
Sometimes.
well, the diodes will last a long time. It's the driver that goes out usually,
Oh,
Yeah.
okay,
because they overheat.
okay.
Is that what it is?
But they still last longer than an incandescent bulbs, I think, right?
I don't know. I've changed a lot of 20-year-old bulbs in the last 6 months.
Oh, 20 years. though.
20-year, they're supposed to last 20
LEDs.
years.
Oh,
I've
and they
changed
have-
a lot of those.
Kind of like the smoke alarms.
Yeah, it's good to
Last
get
10
someone who
years.
does that, so you know.
But how much are you saving on electricity? It probably pays for itself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it can. But
You can
have
figure
to-
that out. It wouldn't be 20 years, it could be like in a few
Yeah.
years.
In a like commercial setting like this, we would have to change everything to see a,
Yeah,
cost saving. Yeah, it's not cheap. That's the plan though. We're going to net zero.
Overall, it makes a big difference.
Yeah, totally.
But there's still some things to work out.
yeah.
I had floodlight bulbs in my house. They were
Those are
100
heat.
watts each. I was
Those
like,
are hot.
turn on your kitchen, it's 600 watts. It's just a light. It's great.
So that the incandescent bulb, I'm to explain this because it's a question. Has a little filament wire,
Mhm.
little wires, and electricity goes in and they're made out of something that resists the electricity. And when you resist electricity, it glows. So that's how you get your light. And that's not a very efficient, that's not efficient use of electricity. I don't know how LED lights work. Does anybody?
It's a diode, which is able to produce the light.
Yeah, so it doesn't work. All I know is it doesn't work that way.
It
So,
doesn't create the heat.
It's just like a little chip that produces the light.
okay, okay.
We can look at them at Home Depot.
That's right. So dimmers, we talked about dimmers. Those are good, right? Because you don't
Yeah,
need
but
the
then
full
you gotta
light.
get the right dimmer to the
Yeah.
LEDs.
Yeah, you gotta match the dimmers. They're getting better. There's so many universal ones now, but they're creating more different types of lights. So it's just as you catch up. Consumer capitalism, it's called. But anyway, so we'll look at dimmers. That's one of the reasons we're gonna look. So those are,
But better with LED than fluorescent.
so if you dim the light, you're using less electricity, right? Because it's less bright, so less power, so. So they're a good thing. Then motion detectors outside, right? They're off until someone walks by and then they go on. So if you're using them for safety, they don't need to be on all the time. Well, they could be on, that could be a safety thing, but often they don't need to be on all the time.
Most security lights now have motion detectors they can buy for your house. My neighbor has one above his garage and it turns on every time a cat runs in front of it.
Yeah,
Or it's windy.
Not every time a cat.
so if you've seen those solar outside lights,
yeah.
like pathway
Outside
lights,
lighting, yeah.
yeah, those are really great because they have a little storage battery on them and they gather sun all day and then they light up the path at night. So you don't even need to use,
And the bike paths have those.
yeah. So you don't need to use electricity.
The Galita bike path. they
Yeah.
have all those.
And
That's
really
great.
nice ones, too.
It's great because we
They're
need to be
really
able to
nice
ride at
ones.
night, right, Tyler?
Well, it's also annoying because you can get path lights that are hardwired, but the first one's always the brightest. The
Yeah.
last one's always the dimmest. And it looks like this sucks.
Yes.
Just go
Yeah.
with solar stuff.
Right. Those are good. Plus the bus stops, that
Yeah.
limited lighting with the battery, small batteries is great. Okay, battery stored, don't answer this. Stored direct current, true or false? So you don't have to answer it, but the power off of a solar panel, a PVC panel, is DC, right? Direct current. It has to be converted to AC, alternating current, somewhere. Sometimes they have a converter on the panel, sometimes it has to go to a box like we have. And then your house uses alternating current. The current that comes from the power company comes through your meter. That's alternating current, that's AC. So anything in your house, any outlet will be AC. So the solar panel creates direct current, so it's got to be converted to AC so you can use it in your house.
Is that for every country?
Yes.
Okay.
I think everyone's on AC now. But I think that's a really good question. There's still a DC industry, like campers use DC, right? And so small scale areas where it's simpler to use DC, or you can just use a battery instead of. So a lot of the world may use more of that than we do, But a lot of the world's now is getting solar. And so and you can use DC lights for solar. You don't have to convert it to AC if you just have limited use. The way we use electricity, it has to be AC because our appliances work, but you can get DC appliances and
Ceiling
DC
fan.
lights. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the world's still doing a lot of that. Okay, so when you have PVC photovoltaic panels, that's the electrical ones, right? PVC means electrical, because sometimes they'll just call them solar panels, but solar could be hot water, because that's also solar panel. So PVC, photovoltaic.
PV.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's current produced by sunlight, photovoltaic. It's the voltaic affects that. Let's say about that. Oh yeah. So you can use it all up directly. But like if you wanted to have if you only were using some service for daylight hours, then you could have it directly light, say it was inside, but it was still daylight. You could have it directly light that and you don't need a battery or anything. And when it gets dark, it just doesn't make any current. So there's some uses that don't need a battery at all. You can use it. The bus stops have a little battery because they run at night. So they'll be charged up and then you can see your way around at night. So you can store it in a battery, the DC, right? And what's the other place to store it?
Thermal mass.
In the grid.
That's not right, but it's a great idea though. It's a great
Oh,
metaphor.
A
Metaphorical
regular
thing.
car battery.
Zach
Yeah, I
said
know.
in the grid.
In the grid,
Or,
in
in
your-
the grid.
yeah, from the electrical company. So if you have photovoltaic panels, they first go through your panel and they do service everything in your house. And then if there's leftover electricity, it goes back to the grid. It goes into your box and goes the other way. It goes to the utility company. So those are our two main storage things, batteries and grid. We're working like crazy on batteries. If you want to see some wild stuff, if this particular direction interests you, go look at electric storage batteries on the internet. God, unbelievable. It's really fascinating. If you're a technocrat, it's paradise. There's so much stuff. I'm trying to get away from chemical storage into mechanical storage. So things that are on big cables and they kind of move different times of the day. I think it's great. It's a good stretch of the human imagination. Oh yeah, if you're installing those panels on the roof, the electrical panels, what are the dangers in that?
Poking holes in the roof,
What are the dangers to you?
falling on you.
Oh, yeah, falling on you, you falling too.
As you're installing it, you get blown off the
Yeah,
roof.
yeah, you're carrying those big panels and the wind comes up and it happens all the time. And electrocution, those are the two big. So those,
You know, the roof.
electricians don't get electrocuted very often. Have you noticed that?
Well, the good ones don't. The bad ones
They don't,
do.
yeah,
the
and
bad
then
ones
they
get
have
weeded out
dirt.
pretty quick.
Let's
You
get
don't know
weeded
about
out.
the bad ones.
Because they know, I mean, they probably give safety demonstrations and just totally blow up stuff with current. Once you know how serious it is, then, and they really stress all those precautions. I mean, that's part of their trade, They don't deal with whirling saw blades, but
My dad worked with a guy my dad does communication stuff, so this guy was putting up a camera and he was drilling into the wall and drilled straight into a high voltage line.
Oh,
He's
God.
on a ladder, falls off the ladder, he got burned bad.
Oh, what-
yeah, they have all
Lesson
kinds of,
learned, know what you're drilling into.
yeah, oh God, they have
It
so
also
many.
doesn't help if the power's coming right under him.
Mm. So there's some arcing.
It's kind of obvious that there's gonna be power.
He's probably lucky he's on a ladder, huh? If he had a grounded ladder, if he had an electrician, proper ladder, it was probably good. Get knocked off the ladder, you don't get grounded. It's to get burned.
Yeah.
So dimmers, I'll repeat it because it's another question. Now we have them for every type of bulb. LED, incandescent, you can even get them for fluorescent because there's still fluorescent bulbs around. In a mild climate like Santa Barbara, an impermeable air barrier like a polyethylene film is needed. What have we said about that? No, it's not cold enough. It's not cold enough so the cold, below zero cold, well, it gets that way. It may get that way in the future, but right now, that it gets in the wall and then your warm air condenses in the wall, that's not gonna happen very much.
It does not need to be permanent.
Doesn't need impermeable. So mostly what we do is when we put sheetrock on, if we want to do it at all, we put sheetrock on and we put a bead of caulk at areas where there's possible places where air can go out. And then there's also paint that's pretty, impermeable. We can put on. What's that?
I'll paint with the last one.
Yeah. Okay, so if you don't have a barrier on the inside, so polyethylene, do you know that word? So it's probably a good word to know. I can spell it. Something like that. So there's a lot of different plastics, right, in the world today. The polyethylene, all the film plastics made of polyethylene, like you go by, drop cloths and things like that, barriers, those thin plastic, but they're all made out of polyethylene. And that's one of your more benign or less toxic forms of plastic. So whenever I see that, I go, yeah, that's fine, we'll use that. They make other things with it too. I forget. Anybody know what else they make? They make quite a bit of stuff, but it's got a peculiar structure, so it suits some things and not others. But it's the least toxic. Although when it burns, it's probably toxic. So I never worry about it. So polyethylene is what they use the vapor barriers make out of.
That's what's commonly used around here.
No, we don't use that
We
kind of,
do not use
Yeah.
polyethylene
cold climates we use it.
for cold climate.
Yeah. And so we don't use it, so the warm vapor laden air from the inside of our house, from all the pots of pasta we make and all of our breathing, that air is warm, got moisture, goes into the wall because we don't have a real good barrier, it goes in fairly slowly. Then what allows it, if it had a barrier on the outside, it wouldn't be able to get out. That wouldn't be good. What do we have on the outside that allows the air to keep going? Yeah, Tyvek, house wrap. We have that treatment. Everybody's seen house wrap or used it? So house wrap's the generic, Tyvek's mostly what it is. You can get all, there's other out there, but that allows the wall to breathe. So that's actually a really great product. That's another one of the products I really love. Because it keeps, you can throw buckets of water on it and it won't let, whatever we call bulk water in.
It's also good at covered lumber.
Yeah,
There you
Yeah.
go. It's like Gore-Tex.
yeah, yeah.
See a lot of lumber yards. Just covered.
So that's the external treatment that allows water vapor to escape. The words may be funny, external treatment, what the hell does that mean? It's probably got that out of a book. Oh, it is impossible to prevent large convection loops in wall cavities with fiberglass bats. So that's something we talked about on the weekend when we're out there. So it's false. I'll just tell you that it's not a very worded question and I'm too lazy to change it. So it is possible to prevent those. The question is, it is impossible, and you put false because it actually is possible. And convection loops, they used to call them loops. I call them paths now because they don't really loop. The air doesn't really loop. There are places like in a window where it actually goes around. And in rooms, the ambient air sometimes loops because it keeps getting warm, then it cools and comes down. But in a wall, it usually just goes up to the top plate and out. So I call it a pathway. So if you're looking down at a wall, here's a stud, right? We see what that is, looking down. So here's the bottom plate, we're looking down. Here's the top of the studs, right? Every 16 inches or 24 inches. So if we insulate it and we talked about insulating it, we talked about the good and bad ways of insulating Saturday afternoon. A lot of you were here. And you have insulation that has that backing. And that backing is called craft paper. That kind of brown, just normal paper, they call it craft paper. And they do have a foil back fiberglass. It's kind of a shiny foil. You don't see that a lot anymore. It's almost exclusively craft back now. The market comes and goes and the ideas come and go, but the reason they have that and is so you can staple it. Paper goes past the insulation. And then you can staple it into the stud, right? They used to staple it. They would take this little tab here and they would put it on the inside of the stud. No. They would take this flap that was this way and they'd fold it in the stud and staple it this way, right? And they did that so the sheetrocker could see the stud because he has to put his screws in the stud. If you cover it from both sides, it's just paper. And when you train it, a lot of contractors will train their sheetrocker. Usually crews work together, right? And a company will have a subcontractor they work with, and they will train them if they're not already trained. And they'll say, look, it's going to slow you down a little and we'll pay you a little bit more for it. But I want you to mark before you start putting the board on, go down and feel the studs and mark all the studs with a pen, whatever. So that replicates having that visible. So they can do it, they're just not used to it. So you got to sort of retrain them.
Can they just look for the staples?
Yeah, you can see the staple.
Well, yeah, but you don't know where the staples are in the center or, so if you kind of pinch it, you can see and they can mark it. Or they could go by staple, however they want to learn.
Yeah, this is why you have apprentices, right?
Exactly.
Do the work that no one else wants to
Exactly.
do.
So when they did it this way, the problem was we didn't know about convection currents. We've studied walls a lot more since our Energy Star homes failed in the 70s, we did a bunch of pilot projects to make homes more efficient, and they used tons of really good fiberglass, but the homes were failing. They weren't costing out energy much less than the normal way. So they said, what the hell is going on? And they tore apart their walls, and we found out that when they put stuff in like this, the insulation, this is all open air. And when air goes into a wall at any place, it goes through the sheetrock, conducts, it radiates to it, conducts through it, and then it looks for the coolest place, because warm goes to cool. Well, the fiberglass isn't the coolest place because it's warm. The top plate's the coolest place. And so it goes in the wall and it feels that cool top plate, which is visible right here, because and then it just goes straight up to it, and it bypasses the insulation altogether. So you're not getting any insulation out of that wall. I mean, it's that drastic. And they went, holy shit, we didn't know this. We got to redo this whole thing. So now there's a whole, and I'm going to explain this because this is something we talked about in the afternoon. I want you to know. So now there's a whole thing to not have any air spaces, which we'll call convective. Convection just means air moving. Convective, I call them pathways. You can call them loops, because often they loop. In the walls, they don't loop. They just kind of go one direction. But this is the pathway from anywhere it goes into the wall and it goes up. So you don't want any of those. So sometimes you'll be having a piece of insulation and it'll end up like this. And I can't remember where that happens. It happens all the time. Why can't I remember? I'll think of it in a second. And this will be the insulation, and this will be open. So there's a pathway from floor to top. So what the building code says now is that here's your wall. Your insulation, now it's going to be black, has to touch all four, the studs and the back and front, and top and bottom. So that's 4 plus 2, that's 6. So 6 sides. Your insulation has to touch all 6 sides evenly. Can't, no spaces anywhere. And they call it 6-sided something. I don't know, something. Never write anything down. I just call it 6-sided installation. So that's the new norm. And because at the top of the stud bay, this is looking at it sideways now. If your insulation is sloppy here, it's poorly cut and doesn't go up to the top and doesn't touch the top side, they won't accept it. So they'll look at a wall and they'll make sure all the tops, they'll allow a little bit, but if it's really bad, or there's any kind of things on the side that aren't covered real well, or down here, they'll not pass it and have you do it over. So they're starting to get real sticklers on how you do your installation. Never the case in the past, but we're learning more and we're wanting to tighten houses more because of the fossil fuel greenhouse gas problem. So this is how you do it. You don't leave anything to chance. And as we learn more, the code incorporates it. Drives everybody crazy because it's more work. Houses cost more, labor's more, but if we're going to beat the climate change problem, we've got to do this kind of stuff. So it is possible to prevent convection loops in a wall. You just have to put the insulation in really. So for a while they were doing this. They were using spray foam like part of the wall because it's really expensive, but it's an air barrier, so it's really great. So they were putting a part of the wall, and then they were putting fiberglass up to it. But can you see the problem there? The fiberglass has kind of a flat back. Even the fiberglass part is still pretty flat, and it's going to have leaks where it gets that uneven front of the, I've never read anybody, there's always articles about this, I've never read a problem with that, but it's gotta happen because that's how it works.
Hmm.
So one thing they're doing now to prevent that, is I've noticed, and I think this is why they're doing it, is they spray, they don't even spray this much, they spray just a little bit. And they kind of spray the sides and they spray the top and the bottom. So the stud's no longer a cold area, it's got foam over it. So if you look now, when they do that combination, they'll come in and they'll spray just the back and the sides and the top and bottom, and then they put in fiberglass. So it's an air barrier and it doesn't have a convection loop because they've covered over any kind of wood that would invite the warm air. That's a good thing. So they're learning, I just saw that recently on a YouTube, something we were looking at for some other reason. I went, oh, I bet that's why they're doing that. Guy, for years, after spray foam, the closed cell foam came into, the isonine came into use. God, there was like 10,000 YouTubes and magazine articles that you could get at the building magazines, combinations of insulation. Well, if you want to save money but do it right, they had every kind of combination. It was pretty comical.
So the spray foam, is it environmentally friendly?
Not when it's wet, not when you put it on. And it'll only hurt people that are, anything that's in the
That they come in
area of the
contact
gas. So the people put it on have to have hazmat suits on.
Okay.
There's laws, you have to make sure it's not going into your neighbor's yard. So if there's any way it can get out and there's wind blowing, you can't do it. There's really strict guidelines. And of course, all the companies that just do that, Santa Barbara Insulation, they all know all that and do it right. But yeah, it's pretty toxic. And I don't know what happens when it's landfilled, when they bulldoze a house and throw those walls away. I don't know that's something worth finding out. But it's an air barrier. So for cold places where you want to close up all the air barriers and have decent insulation, it's really been a godsend. But sometimes they find out these things down the road. They'll go, oh gosh, if it goes into the landfill, if it stays 500 hours submerged in water, it turns into the gas from hell. So I don't think they know yet.
What about off gassing, Patrick?
Well,
Yes.
Does it reach into your house?
no, once it solidifies, there's no off gassing.
Oh,
So it's like concrete. It's a great product in certain of its phases. I don't know how they make it either. Well, we're gonna look at products. We're gonna evaluate products in a couple of units down the road here. And so we'll go into that. I'll look that up because we'll talk about concrete's really one they're dealing with because it's been horrible. And they're doing a lot of stuff around the world with concrete, trying to figure out ways to make it work sustainably.
Because
Because
we
it's such
wanted to do 3D printed foams, so you use concrete for the.
I think that's stupid. Well, a lot of times the process is stupid for a while until it has a breakthrough and they know how to do it right. But right now I suppose they're working towards some kind of goal for the future. But right now it's just stupid.
I think originally it was make it so they could send it to Mars and make structures at Mars without, so everything's built by the time they get there.
Well, those domes were made from Mars too. Those domes, because we don't know what kind of sand's on Mars, right?
Yeah.
Well, we do now. We probably have an idea because we've been taking samples, but we don't know if there's adobe or anything, or it's just really loose. And so those things, they go in a bag, so it doesn't matter. As long as it's got bulk, that's all. And you can send up in a spaceship those rolls and barbed wire. It's nothing. Doesn't take any room, lightweight, and start making those kind of things. So NASA actually contacted that guy, the guy who ran Callard. He's dead now. And they did a project together because they're trying to figure out ways to get structures up there because the payloads are heavy.
sounds like a conspiracy theory.
Yeah,
That down.
Right.
It's his idea.
Yeah. So that's a, but God, that's just something our science loves to work on, right? Structures for Mars, are you kidding? There's probably so many, young graduates working on all that. Okay, so. keep going. Oh yeah, so the other thing is, in the wall, it's another top view. When you put an X, it means it's a top or bottom view, okay? You see that in the drawing? That means you're looking down at something. So these are the studs. These are the 2x4 or 2x6 that are in the wall. Sometimes they'll put you'll have Romex through the wall, right? Your electrical cable service. So we used to stuff the insulation in the front or in the back because it was easy, right? But then you create what? Convection pathways, right? So that's no good anymore. So now we pull, and the great thing about fiberglass is it's easy as sin to pull it apart. And you can pull it at halfway or a third of the way if the wire is up close. So you just figure out how much, and then you just separate it and put it down on both sides of the wire. Electrical wires are usually here, outlet level. So it's really easy because you're not going very far. If the wire's up high, you might want to start the other way, or you'll figure it out. And same with the pipe that goes through the wall. So now the practice is to split that and get the full amount of insulation, still touching the 6 sides. So air, when you lose heat in a house, what are the 2 major ways that happens? If it's 2, it's got to be very general, okay?
So leaks.
Huh?
Leaks.
Okay, it leaks through holes, right? Okay, and what's that called? If you had to pick radiation, convection, conduction. No, I think convection, because it's air holding the heat that's moving out, right? Just like air that's rising. So convection is one way. And that we can plug by doing a blower door test or that special machine that fills up and everything. So that's great for those kind of holes. Then it goes through and loses through the wall, right? So if we don't have insulation on a wall, which a lot of homes don't, old homes in warm climates, then that just conducts and radiates right through the wall fast. So those are the 2 ways we lose heat. So we're tightening the holes, and we just saw that film on it, that spray thing, the blower door. And then we're putting better insulation in, and vapor barriers if we're in a place where we need those, not here, the cold place. So those are the 2 kind of attacks we're doing, and we've been pretty successful, and we're improving that all the time. And stud bay, here's a true or false. Stud bay and so stud bay, okay, we call these bays, right? Did I mention that? So anything between, any even thing, area between members is called a bay. Cathedrals have, that's where it comes from. Medieval cathedrals have bays because they have repetitive places between their pillars. Stud bay, joist bay, anything. So no, I forgot the question. Oh yeah, insulation in the stud bays doesn't prevent thermal bridging through here, right?
True.
So if we got, so that question is, stud bay insulation cannot prevent thermal bridging of the adjacent studs. So it's true, right? You can't prevent it because it's not in front or back of it. So the heat comes in your wall and it gets slowed up here because it's going through all the little air pockets and then say nothing here. So it conducts, and it's wood's a lot denser than air. So it conducts fairly fast through there. So you lose all that. So that's why, and they call it a thermal bridge because it bridges from the inside to the outside like a bridge where the hot air can go. So thermal bridge. That's a key sustainable construction term. A thermal bridge. And that's why on the outside now they're putting insulation, like rigid insulation, because it can go in front of all the studs. So it blocks that thermal bridge. So it's actually better if you don't have enough insulation in the wall, or you have enough, but you want to add more to the outside. It actually does two things. It creates another thickness to this part, and then it also helps with the stop the bridging to the studs. Okay, faced insulation, we call it faced versus unfaced. And faced is usually craft paper, right? And like I told you, face, like you face something. And here's a word, face, kind of funny word, right? You face it, you put it on your face, makeup's face. Swab. Something that you put something on, they call it a swab, No, swab, right? Everybody heard that word? A swab?
Yeah.
Where do we use that? I was looking at an ad, it was for whitening teeth and they had a swab. Where else do we use the word swab?
Cotton swab.
The cotton swab, yeah. Is that like those things you clean your ears with, what do they call it?
Q-tip.
Yeah, is that a cotton swab?
Yeah.
Okay. So my wife, whose native language is Japanese, she's always learning new English. You can imagine how many freaking English idioms there are. She said, Patrick, swab? I said, yeah, it's not a usual word. It comes from German. You know, Schwab's the financial, Schwab's a German name, SW, probably SCHW originally. We don't have, that's not an English name, Schwab or swab. And I said, well, I'll ask my class where they use it, because it is kind of a funny word if you think about it. She's going, swab? I go, yeah, swab. Anyway. So face is like face, you know, where do they get that from? Anyway, faced versus unfaced. I went to buy unfaced to show you guys the difference. They don't sell it anymore. So I think that right now they're phasing it out, which is good. Because I think you should staple it with that facing. Otherwise, I think it'll fall. They say the friction fit, it won't fall. I don't believe it. And it doesn't need to fall much. If it falls just an inch over 20 years, you've lost a certain amount of six-sided insulation, convection path, rigid insulation. Where's the best place for it to be used?
On the outside.
In the outside. It can be used in many places, but the most practical places on the outside to cover those studs. And you can tape it. I mean, it's great for outside, you know. We've done the loose heat. We've done the craft paper staple. Oh, okay, ready? Right. How do heat pumps work? Now, since we're headed toward heat pump technology, you should just know this ordinarily. Can anybody explain it really briefly?
Just exchanges the air from the inside to the outside, right?
No,
No?
that's a heat exchanger. We'll talk about that. But it draws warmth from the air. And it doesn't matter how cold the air is, there's always warmth in air. It can be cold a winter day, and this machine will suck the heat out of that air. And then it compresses it to amplify it to make it even warmer. And heat pumps have limits. If the air is too cold, it won't work, you know, so they have geographical boundaries where you can use these things. But it's basically, and same thing with an air conditioner, it sucks the cold out of the air because there's always cold in there. So it's really a pretty amazing thing, because this air, like right now, this doesn't seem particularly warm, but this is exactly the kind of air a heat pump takes and makes hot water, hot air out of. Pretty amazing, huh? So that's a very unique, specific type of technology, and air conditioners have used it for a century, and now they're starting to use it for heaters and things. And I think it's ingenious. It's really great. I mean, you know, that you can get it from the ground. You can extract the air. If you go down 6 feet, remember I told you the air is always like 62 degrees year round. That's warm for a heat pump. They could just suck all that and use it. And ground heat pumps are great. We just don't have room for them. They need to be either a large area or go down far to get enough surface to suck it in. And most people don't have that available. And they also use it in lakes. If you live near a lake, you can stick a heat pump out there and extract the heat or cold from that lake water. So in the country where you have more room and there's things, people have been using that for a long time. It's really great. But I love it that they're making little machines you can plop on the wall and have space heaters and water heaters. I think it's great. Okay, we're getting near the end here, you guys. Solar. So you can buy solar panels. You can hire a company and they will sell you the panels and they will charge you for the labor of putting them on. And then you own the panels. The alternative way to get solar is to lease the panels. So you don't own them. In fact, you don't even pay for the labor. You don't pay anything. You contract this company, they come to your house, they put the panels on, all the labor, but you don't get the electricity from the panels. The company owns that electricity. So what they do is they promise you a rate. They will sell you back that electricity at a rate lower than the rate you've got now. And quite a bit, doesn't take much to be quite a bit lower. And then they promise you they will sell you at that rate for the whole time you're using it. So even though the utility company may raise the rates to regular home payers, yours won't go up because you're buying your electricity through the company that leases the panels. So you don't put any money down and you get cheaper energy. It's not as cheap as if you bought the panels because then you take it all. What they do is they take that energy and they take part of the profit from it for leasing you the panels. And then they make sure you get what they contracted you to get. So it's kind of a win-win. The only disadvantage is you don't make as much. You're splitting the profit with this company. But if you don't have enough money to put down to buy the stuff in the first place, why not? You're helping the atmosphere, your rates are going down, and you're not spending any money. So I think the leasing is a great marketing idea, whoever came up with that.
Can you buy them in the future? Like if you can't afford them now, you can lease them, and then in the future, there's an opportunity to buy them?
I'm not sure. I think there might be. I think those companies may have an option to buy. Yeah. Also, I mean, a lot of you are young and just starting out and you don't have a lot of credit and access to loans. You might get a loan from a parent or a relative or something, but you can also get a loan. You don't have to come up with cash to buy that, you know. You can get a loan, but you know, loans require you to have secure work, right? They expect you to keep paying on a loan, so they want to make sure you're always working. So they'll look at your job and that kind of thing. But there's a lot of ways to finance. You just have to go to someone that knows about finances and find out. But the bottom line, the worst case, not the worst case, but the least money you save case, which is still money saved, is to lease these PVC panels. So I think it's a win-win. I mean, there's really no excuse. A lot of you don't own your own property, so of course you can't do it if you're renting or you're temporary, but it's something to think about. You know, if you own a house or you have permission in a house to put solar panels on. Oh darn, I meant to do this. I may not be able to do this question. Do I have a solar book with me at all? So a solar panel sits on a roof, right? And what direction does it face?
South.
So it's got a direction north, south, east, west. What do we call that? A compass direction. Okay, there's another name. Actually, they call it azimuth. And maybe Z. Yeah. And we'll call it, would you say compass? Yeah. You should, you know, that word's a good word to know if you're going to be talking about solar, you know, if you're going in that field or you're getting it. So there's an azimuth angle, south, slightly left, and then there's a tilt That's the word I can't remember. I was gonna look it up in my solar book. There's a tilt, toward the sun. We'll just call it solar tilt. And what I'll do is, at the beginning of the test, I'll tell you what that word is. I'll go look it up. It might be solar tilt, I don't know. That's what it does. So it's important for getting the right insolation, the maximum amount to tilt it both ways, as much as appropriately as you can. Oh, yeah. Oh, this is important. We did a blower door test Saturday, and we sucked air in. We sucked air out. We depressurized, but you can suck it in. You can do it either way. And the pressure wants to balance itself. So if you're sucking pressure out, you're depressurizing this place. You're sucking air out. The air from the outside wants to come in and equal it across. So it comes in all the cracks. That's the whole idea. So, but there's other things besides the blower door that cause pressure differences in a house. Did we talk about that at all? One is a stack effect. Warm air rises, right? You all remember that? So if it rises, then air has to replenish it. So it'll suck in air from outside to do it. So if you have a 2-story house that's open, air will come in, it'll suck air in by that stack effect. Then you have a wind effect. If wind blows against the side of a house, it actually penetrates the house. And then the air on the inside has to go somewhere, so it goes out the other side. So wind's also a pressure effect on your house. And then there's a chimney effect if you have a fireplace, which is, we're having less and less fireplaces these days. And that is air goes up it's burned and it goes up the chimney, right? And takes some of the air from the room. Actually takes air from the room to power that chimney effect. And then that sucks the air in from the outside. I don't know what the question is, but I'll help you with it if that's not enough to answer it. But I didn't know if we talked about those different pressure processes that go on.
Is it optimum tilt? For solar tilt, is it optimum?
Optimum?
Is it? Okay.
No, I'll know when I hear it. That wasn't a good guess though.
Why I typed in solar tilt and that's.
Well, it's a
optimum
tilt in respect to the sun, so that's literally what it is, but they have a word for it. I teach this stuff every year and I forget some of the terms unless I look at and I did look at the book, but I've forgotten it again. Oh, in cold climates, why do we not want that warm air to get into the wall? And therefore put vapor barriers up?
Condensation.
Because it takes moisture into the wall, and why is that a problem?
It freezes.
Mold growth.
No,
Oh,
it doesn't freeze, it does something else.
no.
Before it freezes, it's water vapor. What's the next phase before water? Before freezing, ice. Water.
Water.
So what happens when vapor turns to water? What do we call that?
Vapor turns to water?
Condensation.
Zach, right?
Condensation.
Condensation, yeah. So when it goes from gas to water, it's condensation. When it goes to water to ice, it's freezing. Or there's probably another word for that. Zach, is there another word for freezing?
Yeah, there is. I'll find it.
Zach, is that an endergonic or exergonic reaction?
I don't do Chem Lewis.
Is it elevation, right, David?
No.
Still trying.
If our solar chapter has a diagram, it'll have it. But I don't use that chapter for my solar stuff. I have a big whole book on solar teaching. I had to go through solar training, believe me. I had that stuff cemented in my mind.
I think that's right. Yeah. It's not right in Patrick there.
What's that?
I I think Dylan inhaled too much paint today.
Yeah, I think so too. Okay, so, oh, why does the new building code require electrical power and heat sources in new homes?
Electric power and heat sources? Okay, so.
Yeah, electric power and heat sources, yeah. Or electric energy, either, to sum it up, yeah.
Because don't all the appliances have to be electric now?
What's that?
Don't all appliances have to be electric now?
Yeah, why is that? That's what I'm asking. Why does the code require that now?
To not use fossil fuels.
To not use fossil
Or,
fuels?
well,
Yeah,
yes,
we're weaning off of fossil fuels. So that's how we do it.
in hopes of using
Yeah,
solar. or
yeah, of course, we have to have something to power the electricity that comes to the wall, but we're working on that too. So it's, yeah, so it's to combat climate change, stop using fossil fuel. Although we may be using a lot of it now because one of the things on the bargaining table to Russia and Ukraine is us boycotting their gas and oil export, which will cripple their economy. That's their main economy. And Europe's ready to do it. It'll make gas prices jump. It shouldn't, because we supposedly have all these friends like Saudi Arabia and Canada and Mexico that all produce gas. Venezuela produces a lot of oil. Wouldn't it be great to be friendly to Venezuela again,
I
huh?
think they're trying to put
I
the olive
know.
branch over there.
Yeah, really. War makes strange bedfellows, doesn't it? So, but in case they don't, Germany's thinking, well, maybe we'll use nuclear again for a period to make up for that, because they get a lot of their oil and gas from Germany. So I'm thinking that's okay to survive. Actually, just as we thought global warming was worse than the pandemic, we established that. Now we realize that Putin's worse than both, because he immediately could destroy the world faster than those two could. God, is it ever going to stop?
No.
So, but it's serious though. I mean, this is the confrontation between democracy and tyranny right here. This is it. The tyrant's going, we're going for broke. We're going to push the democracies all the way, maybe even nuclear war. That's
But
pretty
in
much.
time of war, that's when they have innovation.
Yeah. So I'm hoping the world really sees the contrast between tyranny and democracy. The news is doing a great job. They're showing what it's like to live in Russia and Ukraine under the Soviets and how bleak that was, you know. And now we're saying, oh, yeah, that's really crappy. A democracy would be a lot better. So I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, the fuel's changing. Germany also has a lot of coal. They have more coal than anybody. Somehow they have coal deposits. They're going to maybe use those if they turn down this, if they stop Germany from selling or people from buying German oil and gas, natural gas. Next month will tell.
Wait, Germany?
Germany used a lot of gas, Russian gas.
Yeah, they're one of the main. That's why they have that pipeline. But they have nuclear. They haven't shut off. They're phasing it out. But they could probably get it going. And even though nuclear is awful, also as the Russians fool with the Ukraine power station, Ukraine has a shitload of power station, nuclear power station, biggest in Europe. Now everyone realizes that vulnerability of nuclear power, terrorism.
Oh, yeah.
Can't leave it out. I mean, look at the world we live in. Yeah, it's all coming down to it, isn't it? So, but I think we ought to maybe use nuclear for a little bit to keep people from freezing. And even maybe to help global warming a little bit. And then as soon as we're in the clear of both of those. If you're an environmentalist, you really have to be on your toes because we've got problems besides, this is not an environmental problem. This is a crazy leader problem.
Is this gonna be a tough question?
No, we're almost done. Hold on. So blower doors, this is the last little bit. Yeah, we can go. We can look at these films other times. So we'll go pretty soon, okay? what three things, there's more than three, but three that we mentioned that blower doors can do. For three different kinds of tests they can do for a house. This might be a strip, so I know most of you will get one or two, so let's
Blower what?
blower door. What did we use it for there Saturday?
We were testing for leaks, so that's one thing we're doing.
Testing for leaks, good. And why do we test for leaks? That's actually a two-part answer.
Air exchange.
The seal.
Air exchange, make sure we're legally having enough air exchange. So there's a minimum ventilation requirement. So we test for that. What's the other thing? Yeah, that's good. Why else do we want to know how leaky the house is?
See how efficient it is?
Yeah, how efficient, because, you know, if it's just barely at the minimum ventilation, that's not that leaky. That's, you could live with that. If you didn't want to spend the money, you couldn't spend the money. But we tend to want to make them less than that. So that'll give you an idea of where things are at and where, you know, a really tight house would be. So those blower door scores would help for that too. And then the third thing we also did Saturday, remember?
Blower.
Yeah. What else did we do with it?
Talking about the smoke test? No.
Huh? Yeah,
Yeah.
we look for leaks with it.
Yeah.
So it not only tells you how much general leakage, but it will tell you where the leakage is.
So what was the third thing then? There was.
Well, that was three.
The efficiency, check for leaks. What was the third
And
one?
air
No,
exchange.
minimum ventilation was one.
Okay.
Comparative leakage, in case you want to make it less leaky. You have to know how leaky it is. And then finding leaks, following the smoke. You all got that?
So
Those of you here probably got it.
minimum ventilation,
Yeah,
leaks, and comparative, what?
comparative leaks, minimum ventilation, comparative leaks, and then finding the leaks.
Is it zenith tilt?
Yeah.
Ooh.
The zenith angle, right?
Zenith
Ooh,
angle. I think
ooh,
that's
that
right.
might be it.
Zenith angle.
Yeah.
Did you look that up?
Yeah. I came up with like
Uh-oh,
five
you
different
get-
Okay,
answers.
because what does the sun do? The sun's at its zenith, right?
Yeah.
So it's really a solar term. Great, good work, guys.
Good job.
Zenith. Who could forget that?
The zenith.
Okay, the zenith tilt and the azimuth tilt, or compass tilt. Yeah. Okay, one thing I want to talk about tonight, take 2 minutes. We won't look at any videos, we'll save those. We got plenty of times in and out. In any sustainable building program like LEED, LEED, which we're going to talk about later in the unit, and the local one's called Built Green Santa Barbara, we'll talk about that. Why I have this unit here at this day, I have no idea. But one of their sections is called environmentally friendly owner. And that is, when you do all these sustainable things to your house, a lot of them require maintenance and operation skill. And so if you sell your house and you don't tell the new person how to do any of this, you've just negated all that work and money you put in. So it's really important to keep a place and a notebook of some kind. When we look at this, we'll show you more examples.
An owner's manual.
An owner's manual and a maintenance and how to work the frickin' stuff, because a lot of that is temperamental. So that's really important. And it also educates you as you're doing it. And then you can do all kinds of other things, like talk about where the mass transit circuits are in your community, where the hiking trails are. I mean, I've got a list, I won't read it tonight. It's really great because you can include that new person into your community into all these sustainable things that they may not know about. And who's going to do it if you don't? That's the thing about this culture. You can get lost in this without any connections to things and just spend your life isolated. You couldn't do that in old communities. You couldn't do that in Ukraine. Everybody in a community knows everybody else. They help everybody that, but America's not like that. We're a very independent place. So we have to consciously do these things. So this is an important thing. So we'll talk more in detail about it. That was on the schedule. I want to do something that we had for tonight. I've got a SIP panel book, which we'll look at. People have been asking me about this. And Saturday, not this Saturday, one of the Saturdays will be here, and I'll have a bunch of books that we've been using on display, and we'll spend a lot of that Saturday just nosing through these and asking questions. But I have a better, that house that we built up at the Trout Club, the, what's that film say there? Green from the Ground Up?
Yeah.
We filmed that.
Oh.
That's our film, and I just can't find it. I couldn't find it. I thought it was here, it might be at home. And that shows actual SIP panels being put in the house. And the guy who does it talks about it. So it's a much better, I could probably find a YouTube if I can't find that. But this book has details. It's not a good general thing. Okay, so thanks for staying. I know some of you had to go early. If the test is a week away, if there's something that's foggy in your mind, email me. I'll send you back a reply. Or you can come Monday night and ask me as soon as you get here. Say, before the test, I have a question. What the hell? Or if it's a question, bless you. Or if it's a question on the test and you go, God, this teacher's not even speaking English. What kind of an animal is he? And come on up and say, I can't learn this. What is this, Russian or Ukraine? And I'll say, no, it's bad English. What do you want to know? So that happens, I mean, I'm just an ordinary schmuck. Okay, so, yeah. So, because I want you all to do good on this test, okay? I think you will. We went through it tonight. See, there's method in my madness. We went through everything we've already learned, and I bet most of you have picked up a few things tonight they'd forgotten or didn't quite learn before. And then when you screw up the test again, no, you won't. You will forget some things and you'll misunderstand. Then when we go over the test, it'll reinforce it. I'll go over it and I'll show you where people went wrong and things like that. And we'll learn it a third time. And that's magic. Then that'll really stick them. Okay. I got a lot of stuff to do in 8 weeks because I also want to work more with you in some ways, about your individual futures if you need any kind of chat about it. And we did a thing today. We're going to interview all 4 of the teachers. I said 2 were not good. They said, it's okay. They may be bad on paper. I said, yeah, that's possible. So we're going to interview 4 next Monday.
This is for your program? Oh.
And now we're down to it. One guy taught at Questa the same job I have.
Oh.
I like him. He's looking pretty good.
But then you have to ask why then.
Yes, he's gone all over. He reminds me of myself. He's a generation below, but he's been in the he's been all over the country like I have in similar kinds of jobs. It's really interesting. So I understand it, but we will ask him.
He's been following you.
But what do you say?
He's been following.
Yeah. That's kind of worthless because people, they don't know, right? What they're gonna do. Things happen.
Sure. No,
Relative dies or they get married, they
Oh,
move
yeah.
away. I mean, you might as well not even ask that, but we will. Okay, guys, thank you. See you Saturday.